What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to continue to examine 100 years of world championship fights. On the night of Friday, November 30th, 1935, Detroit's heavyweight sensation Joe Louis knocks out Charlie Macera in 3 rounds. The fight took place in Chicago, Illinois at the Coliseum. And the referee was Tommy Gilmore. He stops the bout at 2 minutes and 41 seconds into the 3rd round. A 20-year-old Joe Louis was 6 foot 1.5 inches. He was a heavyweight and had a 76-inch reach. Walked into the ring with a fighting career record of 10 wins and 8 knockouts. As for Charlie Masala, he was 24 years old. He stood 5 foot 9 inches. He was a heavyweight and had a fighting career record of 32 wins, 9 losses, 4 draws, and 11 knockouts. Now, who was Charlie Masala? He was born January 10th, 1910 in Pennsylvania. He died March 8th, 1982. He was 72 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Pennsylvania. He fought from 1931 to 1939. He had a total bout career of 69 fights. 37 wins, 27 losses, and 11 knockouts. He was in the ring with fighters such as Red Berman and two-turn Tony Galento. He would lose twice to Al Gaynor. But he'd be in the ring with Nathan Mann from New Haven, Connecticut, Buddy Knox and Johnny Paycheck, Eddie Sims and Maxie Rosenblum, Jewish star heavyweight from Philadelphia, Al Ator, King Levinsky, and Larry One Punch Johnson. He'd be in the ring with light heavyweight champion Bob Olin and Abe Feldman. Those are some of the opponents of Charlie Masala. But he would lose to Joe Louis in the 3rd round, the Chicago Coliseum, on the night of Friday, November 30th, 1935. Now, although this wasn't a heavyweight championship match, but Joe Louis would become heavyweight champion 1937 at Comiskey Park, when he would knock out James Braddock in 8 rounds and become the 2nd black heavyweight champion of all times. And I want to go through some of the fights of Joe Louis leading up to his heavyweight championship bout in 37. Monday, December 10th, former world welterweight champion Barney Ross defeats Bobby Pacho, 12 rounds, Cleveland, Ohio, to remain the world junior welterweight champion. Fight took place at the Public Hall, and on that undercard you had fighters such as young Buddy Bear. He was the younger brother of Max Baer. You had Paul Pirion and Jimmy Vaughn. These were the up-and-coming fighters that fought on that undercard of that brilliant fight. 24-year-old Barney Ross stood 5 foot 7 inches. He was a junior welterweight, had a 67-inch reach. Walked into the ring with a fighting career record of 53 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws, and 13 knockouts. As for Bobby Pacho, he was 24-year-old. He stood 5 foot 6 inches. He was a lightweight with a 66-inch reach. He had a fighting career record of 53 wins, 17 losses, 8 draws, and 29 knockouts. Now, who was Bobby Pacho? His name was Robert M. Pacho. He was born August 21st, 1910 in Yuma, Arizona. He died May 19th, 1978. He was 67 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Cleveland, Ohio. He stood 5 foot 6 inches. He was a welterweight with a 66-inch reach and had a fighting career record of 191 total bouts, 103 wins, 70 losses, and 52 knockouts. He had 18 draws, and he was stopped 8 times. Fought from 1928 and 1941. He was in the ring with fighters such as Severino Garcia, young Peter Jackson, who he would lose to twice, Eddie Shea, Doc Sneal, and Frankie Glick, battling Siki and Ignacio Fernandez. Very good fighter was Bobby Pacho. But he would lose the former world welterweight champion, Barney Ross. November 10th, 1935. December 10th, 1935. And it was for the World Junior Welterweight Championship belt. Now, Joe Louis would have another fight on the night of December 14th, 1935. He was 20 years old, and he had a record of 11 wins, 9 knockouts. And he would knock out 24-year-old Lee Ramage, 8 rounds in Chicago, and he would have a fighting record of 40 wins, 8 losses, and 17 knockouts. It would be at the Chicago Stadium. Now, one of the opponents was Teddy Urach, Al Ator, John Henry Lewis. They would be opponents of Lee Ramage. And who was Lee Ramage? His name was Leland Bissell Ramage. He was born October 1st, 1910 in San Diego, California. He died July 19th, 1991. He was 80 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Avila Beach in California. Stood 5'11". He was a heavyweight and fought from 1929 to 1939. Had a total bout career of 72 fights, 49 wins, 14 losses, and 23 knockouts. He'd be in the ring with Oscar Rankins and Steve Hamas. He would lose one and win one to Hamas. Ace Hutkins, the Nebraskan Wildcat, and Tuffy Griffith. And who was Joe Louis? His name was Joe Louis Barrow. He was known as the Brown Bomber. He was trained by Jack Blackburn, and he was managed by Jack Roxborough and Julian Black. He was promoted by Mike Jacobs. He would fight from 1933 to 1934 as an amateur, and from 1934 to 1951 as a professional. Stood 6'1.5" He was a heavyweight and had a 76-inch reach. He was born May 13th, 1914 in Lafayette, Alabama. He died April 12th, 1981 in Detroit, Michigan. Now, he'd be in the ring with fighters such as Mark Merritt for the Chicago Golden Gloves and the National AAU competitions. He had a record of 69 total bouts, 66 wins, 3 losses, 52 knockouts. He'd only be stopped twice, once to Max Schmeling and once to Rocky Marciano. He'd be in the ring with Primo Carnera, Jack Sharkey, Max Baer, Max Schmeling twice, John Henry Lewis, Jim Broderick, Billy Conn twice, Just Joe Walcott twice, and Rocky Marciano. Joe Louis, December 14, 1935, knocks out a young man by the name of Lee Ramage. Let's take a look at that fight.
The referee is Lieutenant Commander Jess Kentworthy, who incidentally was second in command of the ill-fated Nathan. Young Joe Louis, coming out to meet Lee Ramage. Ramage, 24 years of age, 6 feet 1 inch tall, weighs 184 pounds. Lewis, 194. There are few men who sought a second bout against Joe Louis. Lee Ramage is one of those. Ramage comes out of Avila, California, managed by Pop Hubley. Ramage forced to hold on, backing off against the jolting left jabs of Joe Louis. Stolid, impassive, stalking. Good right hand. Ramage's knees seem to buckle then. Those jolting left hands beginning to cut down Lee Ramage. Ramage's game. Louis 10 pounds heavier, seemingly much the stronger. The hand is always cocked, ready to go. Good left hook that time by Joe Louis. There's that right hand. Down goes. And Louis comes right after him. Lee Ramage in deep trouble. And watch the towel come flying into the ring. There it is. The fight's over. Joe Louis has KO'd Lee Ramage.
January 1st, 1935. Mexican and California State champion Bobby Arizmendi. Baby Arizmendi defeats Henry Armstrong 12 rounds in Mexico City. is for the recognition of the Mexican and California state championships. It's an untitled bout. It's an overweight match. Arizmendi was 21 years old. Stood 5'4.5" Weighed 128 pounds. He had a 68.5-inch reach. Fighting record coming into that bout of 31 wins, 6 losses, 6 draws, and 14 knockouts. 25-year-old Henry Armstrong. Stood 5'1". Weighed 128 pounds. Had a 67-inch reach. And he walked into the ring with a fighting record of 65 wins, 9 losses, 9 draws, and 14 knockouts. Now, Henry Armstrong was trained in 1932 by Harry Wiley Sr. And as this series goes on, you'll learn a lot more about Harry Wiley Sr., one of the greatest trainers in boxing history. Trained fighters such as Canada Lee, Sammy Mandel, Joe Louis, and Henry Armstrong, Sugar Ray Robinson, Danny Cox, Louis Spider Valentine, Muhammad Ali, Archie Moore. So Waterboy, Jack Dempsey. In the fight in 1919, when he would defeat Jess Willard, he would hand wrap Sam Langford's hands. One of the greatest trainers is Harry Wiley Sr. And he trained him in the 1932 Olympic trials. Had him for 6 months. And it would be at that point that Henry Armstrong would learn how to steer his opponent in a direction that he wanted him to go with his head. Would tuck his chin into his shoulder and watch his opponent's feet. He would have 6 fights with baby Arizmendi. He would win 3 and lose 3. But he would take his California and Mexican state featherweight championship belt away from him. Baby Arizmendi would become the featherweight champion of the New York SAC in 1932. Now, who was baby Arizmendi? His name was Alberto Arizmendi. They called him the Aztec Warrior. He was born March 17, 1913. Mexico. Died December 31st, 1962 in Los Angeles, California. He was suffering from diabetes. Stood 5'4.5". He was a featherweight. Had a 68.5-inch reach. Fought from 1927 to 1942. Began boxing at the age of 13. Had a total bout career for 140 total bouts. 92 wins, 26 losses, 17 draws, and 20 knockouts. He'd be stopped 4 times. Between October 18, 1932, February 28, 1933, would face Archie Bell twice, Speedy Datto, Freddie Miller, Newsboy Brown, Henry Armstrong. His name was Henry Jackson, or Medley Jackson. He was born December 12, 1909. Columbus, Mississippi. Died October 23, 1988, Los Angeles, California. Stood 5'5.5". He was a featherweight, lightweight, welterweight champion. Had a 67-inch reach. Won 183 wins. 151 wins. 100 knockouts. Was stopped twice. Alavino in his first fight, 3rd round. And Fitzgibbon, 1941. 10 draws. Would have 183 total bouts. Fight fighters such as Lou Ambers, Midget Wargas, Petey Cerrone, Juan Zarita, Ray Robinson, Benny Bass, Bojack, Barney Ross. Sammy Ain't Got It, Tippy Larkin. Lou Jenkins, Seferino Garcia. Fizzy Zivit. These men would mix it up 6 times. But on the night of January 1st, 1935, Henry Armstrong would be on the short end of the stick when his bout with Mexican's baby Arizmendi. Now, baby Arizmendi won the Mexican title from Kid Pacho. Won on points November 14th, 1931. He would win the California State Championship after defeating former gold medal champion and world flyweight champion Fidel LaBarba. January 1st, 1932, defeated Newsboy Brown for a shot at the Los Angeles Games. August 30th, 1934, he was outpointed by Freddie Miller. Won a New York sack. August 30th, 1934, outpointed Bronx Spider Mike Belois. May 14th, 1933, was KO 3 rounds. Mickey Cohen made him the recognizable figure for that title. November 4th, 1934, outpointed Armstrong. January 1st, 1935, he outpointed Armstrong once again. This time, he won the California and Mexican State Championship belt. February 2nd, 1935, stopped Albert Chalky Wright. Second round. He was outpointed by Lou Ambers, February 7th, 1936. August 4th, 1936, he lost the Mexican California State titles to Henry Armstrong. October 5th, 1937, he outpointed Chalky Wright. March 15th, 1938, outpointed Henry Armstrong. He was actually outpointed by Armstrong. January 10th, 1939, he lost the welterweight championship shot to Homicide Hank, 6 rounds. There was a final bout between those two men. Arizmendi KO'd by only 4 men in 140 bouts. California Jackie Wilson, 8 rounds, stopped baby Arizmendi at Wrigley Field, 1941, the Golden State Welterweight Championship title. Diego Acuna stopped him in 7 rounds. It was in San Antonio, Texas, 1928. He was stopped by Lou Ambers, 11 rounds, New York's Madison Square Garden, and was finally stopped for the 4th time. Earl Turner, 6 rounds, technical knockout, Oakland, California, 1942. Defeated Henry Armstrong in 3 bouts, lost him in 3 bouts. Completed 1 bout with a broken wrist, November 4th, 1934. Amazing fighter was baby Arizmendi. Take a look at the fight between baby Arizmendi, Homicide Hank, Henry Armstrong. Now, Henry Armstrong's back is to you. What he understood early on, that the body can move 8 different directions. And he was studying his man's feet and his knees. Because based on his foot and his knees, that showed him balance. And balance is the most important asset to a fighter. Because should he not have balance, he will not be able to set himself in a position to throw a punch or get out of a punch. So if a man's balance and his hand coordination does not match, you must punch with him. You must always punch with your man when his balance is not on sequence with his hand combination. And if you look here, Henry Armstrong keeps his man on his heels as he moves forward, tucks his chin under his left shoulder, constantly throws an overhand hook with his right hand. Very important for this style of fighting. Oh, beautiful uppercut by Henry Armstrong. Baby Arizmendi works on the inside, but Armstrong has an answer with short punches on the inside. Never stops throwing punches. And as you notice, his opponent never gets a rest. Right back on his man's chest. Arizmendi cannot box in this sequence. Although he was a master boxer, he has to fight Armstrong this way. Because if he tries to box, he will be exhausted. The pressure that Armstrong applies to a man's heart rate, not only is it overwhelming, it's almost impossible for you to breathe. Armstrong was said to have an overlarge sized heart. His stamina was incredible. His pulse, depolarization of his heart rate will go down to 30. He never stopped throwing punches. If he was fighting in today's era, he would not be beaten by any fighter under welterweight. Oh, beautiful combination by Henry Armstrong. Baby Arizmendi comes right back. But the pressure is a bit too much. Because Armstrong punches under the heart. In the breadbasket. The floating rib. He never stops. And would you believe this is the last round of a 15-round fight? It ends as it begins. Oh, beautiful punches by both men. And they were in the ring with one another 6 times. They split victories 3-3. The relentless pressure that Henry Armstrong puts on his opponent is almost criminal. Because he doesn't allow the opponent's heart rate to adjust. And that's the key in boxing. You must take your man out of rhythm and keep him on a defensive. He will throw punches at you or cover up according to the type of man he is. But he would throw punches as a defensive mechanism because of the pressure that you're applying on him. And when you hit him in certain vital areas as he's doing this, no matter the condition, no matter the opponent, no matter how well he trained or who he is and what his name is and how many titles he has, he will collapse because he is a human being. Henry Armstrong understood that. Didn't care what size his opponent was, what his punching style was. The results would be the same. Incredible. Henry Armstrong, baby Arizmendi, be in the ring together 6 times. As you see, Armstrong goes right back to his man. He doesn't stop. Constantly applies pressure, non-stop. Under the heart, in the floating rib, over the eye, bridge of the nose. He hits you in the mandibular, behind the deramius. All vital punches in deadly areas. Beautiful fighter was Henry Armstrong. Having ranked number 4, the greatest fighter in boxing history. My God, beautiful fighter he was. Look what he does with his left arm. Look how he gets back inside, behind his left arm. Shoves him off and comes right back with a punch. Baby Arizmendi cannot stop breathing. Because if he stops breathing for a slight moment, his rhythm would be off, his timing would be off, and he would be overwhelmed. This went on for 15 rounds. My God, this is fighting. I don't ever want to hear any comparisons to Henry Armstrong again. Let's move on. Other world championship fights. One last thing with this fight with Armstrong. Armstrong was just an amazing fighter. 27 fights in 1937. He would collect the featherweight championship belt from Peter Cerrone, knocking him out in 6 rounds in October. Madison Square Garden. He became the first black American featherweight champion of all times. He would pick up the featherweight championship belt, the welterweight, and then go back down to the lightweight division. We do it in 9 months. We have 19 welterweight championship title defenses. We have 5 welterweight championship defenses in 1939 alone. Incredible fighter this man was. 1940, he would move up the middleweight division and challenge Sefrino Garcia. Referee George Blake will call it a draw because he would take 5 rounds away from Henry Armstrong for no apparent reason at all. Unbelievable fighter he was. Let's move on. January 28, 1935, World Junior Welterweight Champion, Chicago's Barney Ross defeats Frankie Glick 10 rounds in Miami, Florida. It was at the Municipal Stadium. The referee was Leo Shea. Gave the verdict to the champ, Barney Ross. Ross was 25 years old. He stood 5'7". He was a junior welterweight with a 67-inch reach. Frankie Glick was 27 years old. He stood 5'5". He was a junior welterweight with a 67-inch reach. And Frankie Glick won 82 fights.